Right, everything's an embarrassing pigsty. Look at the stains on the wall. Horrible. But I haven't done a video in ages, so about time we gave you a bit of an update on what's going on with the micro capsule house thing. So we finished the exterior fiberglassing. It's not really because it's fiberglass matte like roll, but not with the proper epoxy. Interesting experiment. Not an absolute abject failure, but I wouldn't recommend anyone else try doing it. However, the end result is a bit plasticky and stuff, reasonably difficult to puncture unless you use something really sharp. So if we had to drag this thing through the bush or whatever, it'd stop the side walls and stuff tearing on bushes and things, which polystyrene is rather wont to do. However, not that great, but next stage after this, when we get some improved weather, we'll be going through multiple really thick coats of acrylic paint. So if we were able to do this again, plan A was a better one. Just get some cheap cotton sheets and use that to as your matting material, and then do your PVA glue through that. It does work quite well, but with the stiffness inherent in fiberglass, because it's a stronger material, PVA it was an absolute nightmare to get it to stick down. I've made a hell of a mess. It's just a patchwork quilt of fiberglass thing, but a few coats of paint and stuff like that, and then my usual matte black spray to cover up all my bodging experimentation, and you won't be able to tell what an absolute hash of this I have made. However, structurally it works okay. All around this area, obviously dirty as hell because I get in and out of there all the time. I have not yet hinged the door or fiberglass the exterior of it. I will do that with the same process. Might as well keep everything going the same way. I've still got some glue left and stuff, so we'll fiberglass the exterior of the door, but I've decided that instead of hinging it, because if we do that, there's a small issue with space. This thing's designed to go into tight little areas in the bush and various other ideas, which we'll talk about shortly. I've gone with a plan B on where we might take this one next, actually, when we're fully completed with it. But it's designed to fit in tight spaces and be small and stuff. And if we have a door that hinges up like this, or more classically out that way, horizontally, when it's open at least, we've damn near doubled the width of the overall footprint we're creating, which means we have to have some sort of decking area or whatever out here where you open the door through and stuff like that. That's all clear, which would interfere with camouflage or a boat type system on a raft, or in a tree hut type hang system on a deck, or something like that. That's right, I'm supposed to say platform because foreign friends find my accent hilarious when I say deck. That's D-E-C-K, dickheads. See, notice the difference there? Anyway, yeah, you got to create some area out here and stuff, which interferes with camouflage, it increases your footprint, and all kinds of things like that. It's a pain in the neck. And what I've been doing with this thing is it just pops into place, just jam it in there basically. And then, when I get in and out, we throw it to one side here along the thing, or I've been slotting it down behind the couch there and things like that. And it made me to thinking. It got me to thinking, what I'm going to do is with this is create a piece of framing into it, recess a piece of board in that's got holes drilled through with little locking lugs that spin through the holes like this, and those locking lugs will rotate into place behind the door frame, and possibly across the front, although that's not really necessary. It's mainly behind the door frame, but yeah, both ways, because that way you can just shut the door and pin it in place. I can leave it and walk away from it. This structure isn't really rigid enough to stop a determined thief or someone getting into it, so you don't really bother that much with door locks, to be honest. Although I could do pin systems through the wood or whatever, stuff like that, but it's kind of pointless. If someone finds it and wants to get in there and have a go, I'd almost rather they just open the door and go, and instead of smashing windows trying to go through there or kicking their way through a wall or something like that. So yeah, it's one of those things that you go with the stuff. But yeah, it's theoretically possible to lock it as well, and perhaps later on when I've had it for longer, I might reinforce the exterior with chicken wire or something that stops you from being able to kick your way through it, at which point putting locks in would be useful. But anyway, main point there was just to have a free hanging hatch door that, kind of like a marine latches, pops itself in place, sort of have one on each side of the door frame about midway of the door's height, that just pin it in place there and stops it blowing off in the wind and things like that. And it'll have some flashing around the edges and things and sort of seal it up reasonably well. So that's something that remains to be done. Instead of going with a hatch door, we're now going with a lifting hatch door on a hinge. We're just going to have a free hanging one, and then I can rig up some mounts or brackets or something that you can just hang it on the side wall when you've got the door open, or somewhere neat to put it, or you can throw it on the roof or whatever. It's a hatch, you just biff it somewhere out the way kind of thing. So I'm going to do that for now. It's not very well lit, so I might just put a headlamp or something. Oh, I can turn this on, hang on. I'm on touch light. These little buggers don't like working very much in the cold. So it's going to turn off again in a minute. Just give me a moment here. Warm it up. And turn off, turn on, full brightness. There we go, okay, cool. A bit yellowy with the light there. So interior, not much has changed here, although today I built some foam shelves for nebulous crap. So it's just, you know, drink bottles, blocks of chocolate, nebulous shit, aspirin inhalers, you know, which I don't really use anymore, but we keep them just in case, batteries and things like that. The electronics for my solar panel system will sit up in this cubby hole. Eventually I've got a little mini circuit thing that I've talked about in other videos. So we'll drill a hole through the wall here, not where the door goes, through here, and seal it up and send a cable through with it all sealed up, and then the cable will come out onto the roof here. And yeah, I purloined a few lengths of in here, sort of 240 volt rated flexi cable stuff, so that'll do for an extension cable for now. I'll link all those links together, and that should give me about 10-15 meters of stuff. I think I might make a little mast or something to put my solar panel on, so I can poke it up out of the dim area that I'm in, over top of the shed over there or something like that. Not anywhere that's going to annoy the neighbours, but somewhere where I get a few hours of sunlight a day, so we can start actually using the solar in the system. Anyway, back inside, we built our shelves. Did all of that. I modified and then bolted a coat hanger into the wall to hang my jacket on, so it just fits in there. That gives you a sense of how low it is in here. That's my jacket, little vest. So the only thing that doesn't have a little cubby hole currently is the new couch covers, for when I get round to that. We've been doing experimenting with burning your candles in here. That looks about as dangerous as it actually is. I shouldn't really be doing that, but I mean, we've got wax stains all over the place, so we've been testing some theories out. What we do know though is that once I build a ceramic or metal bracket thing to actually hold the candles and stop spilling wax everywhere and creating a bloody fire risk, burning 2 very small size candles in here, even in sort of -2 weather, keeps things nice and toasty warm. You just set them running for a wee bit, warms things up, and then it stays warm very well. So I'm very impressed with the 50mm foam in terms of its insulating value, even with the windows in now. They also do their other job, which is to collect condensation, so nowhere else condensates. It does not get drippy or wet or any damp in here, only on the windows. And then you obviously pop the door hatch open to ventilate during the day and get that damp out. If you don't want to do that, the other thing that I do is grab a tissue and just wipe the windows down and manually take care of that dampness, but it attaches to the windows, and the windows only, because they're obviously very thin glass and super cold when they're warm inside and freezing cold weather outside, so that's worked really well. Vent system works good. It's pretty ventilated in here. Like, I smoke vapes now, not tailor-mades, but they produce a lot of smoke, and yeah, that ventilates quite well. One of the modifications we will be doing though is somewhere up in there in our cubby system or whatever, punching a hole through a wall and building an extractor ventilator that's electrically powered. Probably seal up a lot of the underground open floor space at the end of our couch there, because yeah, that's just a huge amount of vents that are unnecessary. And getting on to the next bit of project, we might be having some greater damp risk and greater water risk, so I don't want a big bloody hole in the floor to let the goop in. So I'll probably seal that up at some point with some foam, and yeah, just do what I've done on other old Nano houses where I have an electrically pumped system that pumps air in and extracts air out, and allows me to manually control the air volume in the space, which is good for heating, cooling and various other things. If you consider a space like this being basically like the inside of an air conditioning unit, it starts to give you a bit of a sense about how you go about exchanging air and it drying the air out, or heating the air up, cooling the air down, or various other things like that depending on the exterior weather. Because I've got my little shelving unit, I've now cleared a cubby on the left hand side there, so I'll probably take those clothes hanging bags and put them into the cubby, or just neaten things up a little bit, or maybe move some of my food stuff off into the corner behind the bags or something. But yeah, we're improving our space and whatnot. Still not fully done in here yet, but we're getting there. Next stage will be basically to finish any and further internal construction and adjustments, and sort of get everything kind of figured out and lived in for a bit, so that we know exactly where everything goes and it's all sort of neatly set up. Then unpack everything, pull it all out, and paint the interior, at which point I'll also seal the windows into place with silicone glue. They're currently just locked in place with their little locking tabs at the, if you remember, the windows are actually picture frames, so they just have little locking tabs in the back that holds the glass in place once you put your picture in normally. So yeah, going to paint the interior with just a matte white satin finish type enamel thing, and then I'm actually going to draw all over the walls and glue art on and just generally graffiti the shit out of the inside of here. So it might spend a couple of days looking quite neat and zen and white and black and cool and wabi-sabi like that, and then I'm going to turn it into a mad artist cave of doom. Right, so exterior wise, as you can see, yeah, we've got all that fiberglassing done. Because the PVA isn't actually fully waterproof until we've got this whole thing painted, what I normally have is a blue tarp on top of here just to stop any dampness and wet getting through and ungluing my glue. But unfortunately what I found is that a little condensation collects under that tarp, because obviously this is a warm structure and outside is freezing. So some of the glue didn't quite go off. There's a couple of patches that are still tacky, so I've just got the tarp off at the moment, just to let that glue vapor off properly finally. Prepping up ready for paint. But yeah, up on this roof section, it's not particularly strong. I wouldn't go standing on it, although in a pinch I could probably stand on that subframe there. But it is strong enough to hold things like solar panels and stuff like that. And if we need to eventually hold water tanks or any other sort of hardware like that for bits and pieces, then we'll build a subframe that goes around, or external frame that goes around the outside of the unit that separately holds things like water tanks and whatnot. Because longer term, I figured out that if we went to this end where the windows aren't and stuff, just utility wall here, I could build another unit out of foam that wouldn't even occupy the same amount of space as that couch, that had a squat toilet and micro shower unit in it. And I realised we don't actually technically need standing room for a shower. You can do that in a squat position as well, quite easily. I've practiced doing that in normal showers before a few times. And I'm told actually by a friend of mine that the Japanese have, you know, little tubs and things like that that they do quite often. So washing yourself in a squat position isn't actually that uncommonly weird. It is in a Western environment where we're used to showers and standing up, but it's not technically necessary, which means we can keep things low and small when I eventually create my wet room for this unit. So the only other thing to talk about is, well, we've got a big stack of plastic tanks there. These are oil barrel tank things that obviously I live above a restaurant and bar, and we have fryer, so we go through 2 of these a week, every 2 weeks, one a week. They're about 17.5 litres, and we use all that oil, and then it gets exchanged out. The oil itself gets recycled back to wherever it goes. People come and pick it up, but the plastic tanks that it comes in are not recyclable, don't get taken by the company that brings us our oil or anything like that, so they usually go to rubbish. And I found this out a few weeks ago, so I started collecting them. As you can see, I've got 8 of them there, so I found out about 4 weeks ago. No, hang on, if I've got 8 weeks ago. Anyway, focus your stupid camera. Local restaurants apparently all use a similar supplier, so I've probably got quite an easy supply of more of these tanks if I went and asked some of the other local restaurants, but at least I can collect the ones from here. The idea being that, roughly speaking, a 17 litre space of that sort, if you fully submerged it, and I've gotten my sciencey bits right, which I regularly get wrong, so I may have gotten this wrong, correct me if I am, should displace about 17 kilograms of water if you fully submerged it, which means that to float about halfway deep, that could support maybe 10 kilograms or so. I think that's how it works with displacement and air volume and shit of that order, assuming it's fresh water at sea level and a bunch of other crap like that. So anyway, that means that basically if I build Yeldy doodad here onto a deck unit with about half a metre space either side of it, and make catamaran pontoons basically out of these things, I'll need approximately 16 to 28 of them to support the weight of this unit, plus having some additional deck space at the rear, just for having deck outside space, and also somewhere to put that wet room thing I was talking about. So I'm now starting to look at that as the long-term goal for this project, is supporting it on water, on an inland waterway, so like a river or an estuary. We've got some on the hill, behind the hills behind me. Out there obviously is a big-ass port, but yeah, I looked into renting berths down the way where the yacht marinas are and stuff like that, but obviously a little shanty boat thing like I built probably wouldn't be very appropriate for rich people yacht marina, so I doubt they'd let me do that. Theoretically, if I got a proper boat, like got an old second-hand rowboat or something that, like a 4-metre boat that this thing would fit on, they might allow that, I don't know, but I kind of like the idea of just doing my own little shanty pontoon barge thing, because it only has to float, it doesn't have to be particularly seaworthy, and then putting solar-powered electric trolling motors on it so that I can just putt round the Avon River and the estuary. As I understand it, there's not really any legal stuff standing in the way of me doing that in a fully mobile structure of that sort, and even if there was, people get a problem with somewhere where I'm at, I go, okay, I'll move another kilometre down the river somewhere. There's plenty of areas on the estuary where I can pull up. There's a place called Naughty Boys Island. It's just weirdly named, yeah, that you can pull up that's across the river from the mainland area and stuff, so people need a boat to get out to me to complain in the first place and things like that. So, and there are a lot of other places in New Zealand where living on a river is already done or is entirely doable. So kind of a better long-term strategy than going into the bush, because you don't need to camouflage or anything like that, particularly because you're not really doing anything illegal. It's just living on a barge. So yeah, I'm thinking longer term we'll probably give that a go if I can't find somewhere sort of land-based to go on a more permanent basis. But yeah, we'll see how we do. I'm quite fine staying where I am at the moment. I'm just sort of thinking longer term plans for life and whatnot. Anyway, that went a lot longer than I expected it to. There's your update. Next one, hopefully this will all be matte black and looking a lot neater, and the inside will be white and looking neater, and the door will actually attach properly and a few other things like that. But I've been living in this thing for a while now. It's very warm, it's totally functional, it just looks like shit at the moment, which I don't really care about because it's my own little piece of inside with windows and crap, which is cool. Yeah. Anyway, that's the end of that for now. You'll have a good one.